From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions, is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We've already had people waiting for this to begin. A lot of people are very interested in this subject, so thank you for being with us today. We're talking about Hunter Biden after he was convicted or found guilty yesterday on all 3 felony counts on gun charges. After that conviction, today we're talking Greg and our executive producer, Jeff McClain, what happens next. So let's go back over the trial over the last week or so and kind of explain.
User or an addicted person for illegal drugs. He checked no on the ATF 4473 form, and the rest is history. But, you know, there's a complicated series of events that led us to this federal courtroom in Delaware. You know, if you'll remember, the special counsel did not recommend pursuing these charges and only recommended misdemeanor tax charges. That created a political firestorm. So Hunter Biden is now was charged with these, or going to be charged with these felonies. There was actually a plea agreement, and the federal judge rejected it, thought the language was overbroad and would have prohibited the United States from prosecuting Hunter Biden for any other crimes at any other times, at any other place. So then, fast forward, federal court. Witnesses by the state. The trial lasted 5 days, jury out 3 hours. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
And this could carry 25 years in prison, right?
Well,
depends.
Could is the key word.
That's really interesting. And you know, when you look at the news feeds, news flashes, and you know, I was even kind of guilty about this, but federal court is kind of a unique world, you know, in and of itself. No cameras in the courtroom. The sentencing matrix is very complicated, the federal sentencing guidelines. And what they do is they tell somebody, and I've seen actually people almost faint in court where they hear the maximum statutory penalties. In this case, it's 25 years. But we have the federal specific. like the giant magical pen stroke of a king with a scepter. I hereby pardon you, never happened. Commutation is basically the get out of jail free card. You're still a convicted felon, this is still on your record, but you're going home.
And this is what presidents do when they leave office. They have a list, and the announcement is made on which sentences will be commuted.
They don't actually have to do it, and when they leave, though, it is they can do it earlier. And we saw that with President Donald Trump doing it a little bit earlier.
That's
But
true.
generally,
I guess I'm thinking Barack Obama.
Well, and the tradition has been in the past to do it on the way out, because
Yeah.
it has political ramifications, and it's one of those things where if you
Signing off on
the
this
last
lie.
day of work, oh, by the way, doop,
Yeah.
so what would it take? Talk about the pardons and commutation process on the presidential level, Greg.
Basically the way it's supposed to work is there's a committee that makes recommendations, whatever. I mean, Hunter Biden is somebody, the drug use is going to, count against him. But it being rehabilitated, I think, would be a mark in his favor. But he's got a lot of check marks on the positive side of the ledger. No criminal record.
No violent offender.
No violent offender, et cetera, et cetera. So, I really think that if the federal judge, and this is interesting because they're going to have to act sooner, Biden would have to act sooner rather than later if you're going with commutation, because it wouldn't do you any good to wait 15 to 21 months, and then at the end of your term, commute your son. I mean, it would have to be pretty damn soon, pretty dadgum soon. But the judge is going to set the sentencing for 120 days out. Now let's count down to November. So that typically gets continued a time or two. So I think Hunter will not be sentenced until sometime after the election, and that would make the issue of commutation much more palatable regardless of what happens.
Right. Well, that, of course, is not the only charge he has faced. And
there's more.
Yeah.
There's more. I think there are 6 misdemeanor tax charges. But, once again, a federal misdemeanor case is just very minimal in the grand scheme of things. And Hunter Biden's already paid that money back. So, it's really going to be interesting because he is, as someone that does a lot in federal court, Hunter Biden is right there on the razor's edge of whether he's going to go to jail, halfway house, probation. So this is going to be a really dramatic sentencing hearing at Delaware Federal Court.
And once, say he does go to prison, you wonder, would he be isolated?
How do you make that
because
happen?
of who he is.
Secret Service protection.
Yeah. How would that work, you think?
Well, that's up to how that works.
What do you think?
I'll tell you how it works. That you typically just go to jail. There's no special dispensation unless you're elderly, ill, whatever. So he would be in the custody of the Bureau of Prisons. He would go somewhere and be designated.
Club Fed?
There's people think there's a lot of Club Feds, but on Netflix there's a lot of them. In the real world they're not, and because of overcrowding, you have and some of my friends that were involved in Pilot would go to some places that were supposedly, not the worst of the worst, but there were other people that were serving time for, hard crimes. So if he is in the custody of the Bureau of Prisons, I think they'll be extra vigilant, but it's not going to be club fed.
One thing, and I would just like your opinion, it's not really a legal opinion, but we were talking about this on how the Biden administration has handled this, and the quote from the president saying, in effect, and I'm not quoting, I don't have it right in front of me, but in effect he was saying, at the end of the day, I'm a dad, and I'm proud of the man my son has become.
Right. It's they have to walk a political tightrope.
Yeah.
And a legal tightrope,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, if you, again, the jury has spoken in Hunter Biden's case, the jury's spoken in the other cases, and I think the White House has been very measured and appropriately silent on the process, because that's why we have a three-part system: the executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch. And you know, this isn't the job for the president to have an opinion. I mean, it is what it is. Even though you could say these charges aren't brought frequently or this or whatever, it doesn't change the fact that the jury found that he broke the law. And as we kind of talked about, I mean, this wasn't a complex case when you write your memoir, Beautiful Things, and talk about being addicted at the time you bought the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we did hear from jurors. We heard some of their
Yes.
interviews, and there were two things that I thought were takeaways. One said, you know, we really couldn't agree the night before, but we came in and we're like, okay, we've got to come to an agreement. So that's when they said, we're going to make this happen. We're going to have a conviction. The other was, we were able to set aside the fact that this is the president's son. Is that humanly possible? I mean,
No.
no.
You know, when you have these mega trials and you're trying Donald Trump and you're trying Hunter Biden, you know, it's logically disingenuous to say, I'm going to pretend this is, you know, Hunter Smith or Hunter Jones, or this is Donald Green. You know,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And, you know, at the end of the day, you go, you know, we're trying to strive to get jurors that are fair and impartial, and we ask them a litany of questions for deer, all this stuff. But, you know, you can't take the humanity out of humans. You know, you can't take people's prejudice and biases. They don't leave them at the courthouse door to the courtroom. So, you know, you can try to be fair, but it's, you know, it is what it is. And sometimes the specter of celebrity, I mean, it works both ways. It can, so now's the time for payback, or it can be, you know, whatever. But let me ask you this. Do you really want a juror that would not know who Hunter Biden or Donald Trump is?
Well, there's that.
So, you know, it's, you know, and then you see cases like when we have, you know, when I covered the Johnny Depp case. I mean, I just think that the specter of celebrity carried Johnny across the victory lane. And now in these kind of cases, I think it's the reverse. The specter of celebrity is kind of a albatross around someone's neck.
May work the other way. You know what I always like to ask you before we wrap things up, what do you think is going to happen?
I think, regardless of what happens, you know, it's not going to be one where Hunter Biden is in jail for years of his life. So if he gets 15 months at 85%, you know, it is what it is. He'll be eligible for a halfway in 4 to 5 months, halfway house to transition. You know, if he gets probation, I think if a judge did what I see in these type of cases, you would see a sentence of an alternative sentence of a halfway house or home confinement. So that's what I think is the most likely outcome for Hunter Biden.
Well, we'll see. We'll hold you to it, Greg.
Yeah, we will. And let's boil it down for, yeah, we will. We'll revisit this when we find out. No pressure. We'll revisit this at 5:30 as well. And we'll kind of boil it down for you, hit the high points. We hope you'll join us on 6 News coming up at 5:30. Thanks.
Look forward to it.